I'm really excited today. You might have seen Jason popping around the group a little bit. He is, I want to call him our asbestos expert. Is that all right, mate? Can I call you our asbestos expert?
Considering that's all they let me do these days.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's your name now. So I thought Jason would be awesome to bring on today, just because, you know, most of you guys are getting straight into your renos. What is it? It's typically any house before like 1987 or something like that you pretty much got to worry about, don't you?
Yeah, so the facts are in 1985, asbestos was totally banned in the housing construction industry in Australia.
Yep.
But Western Australia state 1990 because a lot of builders had stock laying around in sheds and garages and they run it out.
Mm-hmm.
We have found stuff at a later date, but I guess the thing about asbestos is it's easy enough and quick enough to get a test, and that can do all sorts of problems.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's a big thing for me to bring you on to talk about, because I mean, the majority of these houses that people are renovating, you know, they might be like post-war cottages or, you know, like a 70s style brick home, and mate, you'd bank your life on it that that style of house is going to have asbestos somewhere in it, right? And I think demolition is sort of like that activity that a lot of people take on themselves. They don't, you know, they just sort of say it all like, I'll just get in there on the weekend with the sledgehammer and I'll rip it out, take it to the tip, and it's all good. But it's sort of like painting, where people just think they can do it and it's just all part of the DIY. But there are big risks associated with doing it. You know, structurally and in terms of, are you demolishing things that you shouldn't, and electrocution, and there's a massive amount of things. But one of those big ones obviously is asbestos. And part of the reason, you know, that's an awesome reason to have you on today is that horror story that probably everyone didn't see, but if some of you did read it, there was a story Jason posted of a guy that got a grinder out and cut 2 holes in some sheeting, and what was it? He had to write off $30,000 worth of his contents because that asbestos went throughout the house.
Yeah, pretty much what he decided to do was cut some holes in the back of in a wardrobe. I can't remember why. Basically, it started with a hysterical wife on the phone, saying, "I think this is happening. Can you come and help us?" He cut 2 holes about the size of a postage stamp. Our procedure when that happens is to get an industrial hygienist out. They come through the house and they take testing to see how far the dust plume was, and give us guidance on what to do. And it came back positive for asbestos. He lost everything on the top floor of the house. Yeah, right. He just ended up with a house with no curtains, no beds, no clothes. You think of anything that's in your house that you brought in there, when you first moved in, it all went. And
the insurers are going to wipe their hands, right? Like they're not going to cover that, surely.
No, there's no insurance for that.
No.
The thing about asbestos is it's what the insurance industry call exclusion. It is an exclusion. So if you look at all of your handyman, your builders, even a lot of home inspection guys, they're excluded for claims against asbestos. The only way to get public liability or professional indemnity insurance for asbestos is by being an asbestos removal professional like us. Mm-hmm. So that's why a lot of guys who do, and I'm not having to go at them, a lot of guys who do the home inspections, the pre-purchase inspections, kind of glass over the whole asbestos thing and don't say much about it because they don't have professional indemnity insurance for it. So they're not prepared to fully comment on it. So, you know, it's not really, it's like you wouldn't let a vet take your temperature. You're going to get the same result, but the thermometer's going to go in a different place. So you're always better off with a professional with that kind of thing. You know, I guess with renovation, before you race off to Bunnings and get your colour swatches and all that kind of stuff, a good thing to do is figure out, like, why are we even doing this? You want to build a beautiful family home, build some great memories and save some money. The best way to do that is to just stop and look back at what you're about to get involved in. We get a lot of calls from people that have got halfway through a renovation or a bathroom demolition and realise that they've got asbestos and call us in. And we can only do what we can do. We can we can decontaminate your house, we can get rid of all the asbestos, but there's nothing we can do about your health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably what our job is. Our job is to keep people safe and to make sure that the family home is safe for everybody who comes into there that work after us. I mean, it's not very responsible to do your own asbestos removal and then put the plumber in there the next day and the electrician without making sure they're safe, let alone your own family. So I always like to try and say the message from us is asbestos is like electricity and gas. Just don't. Just don't. And if you want to do a reno and your house is built before 1990, but the red hot tip is it could be the whole house, it could be just the eaves, and it could be just the wet areas. But unless you know, there's no point guessing. I don't guess. If anybody asks me and says, do you think that's asbestos? I go, not until we get it tested will we know. There's laboratories all over Australia. It's really easy to work with. You can even mail them a sample and prepay it and get some right results straight away. So there's really no hard way to get a sample. It's the easiest thing you can do in the world. So that's how we get it tested. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to take a note on that because I do want to just come back and ask you something about samples. Just we've gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves. I want everyone just to know, who you are, what you do, where you come from. Just give everyone a bit of a quick personal background on you and your business.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Jason Spaull from Coastal Asbestos Removal. We're based on the Gold Coast. We've got offices in just behind JB in Bungle, and we've got a couple of factories down the road where we store all our gear. The reason why we have two separate premises is it's just the workplace health and safety, and that our whole business is based around that, is to remove the threat or the danger. So we keep the factory and the office separate. No asbestos ever comes into the office, and it's just how my mind works, and it's just the easiest to do. I've been involved in asbestos removal for probably over 20 years now. My background's metal roofing, and when you're doing re-roofs, you come across a lot of asbestos re-roofs. Probably 2011 floods is when we really sort of came into it a bit more. We did about 50 homes for Suncorp up around the Ipswich area. We sort of put the asbestos on the back burner, and then probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I just couldn't roof anymore. I'd just fallen out of love with it, and I needed a new income because I've just never really had a job, so I had to stay in small business. And then I sort of searched through all the things that I've done and the skills that I had, and I really figured out that it wasn't roofing, it was just the fact that there was no passion or drive. And I know a lot of people talk about that, but sometimes it's the best way to get yourself through. So the thing I liked about asbestos was we get to make money and keep people safe. Mm-hmm. And it's really rewarding to know that, we take this seriously. This is our business. This is all we do. We specialise in it. So we've got plenty of time to perfect our system and improve our services. And that's why we've become one of the best known asbestos removal companies on the Gold Coast. We don't do anything else. We just fully specialise in asbestos removal. Yeah,
awesome. It's like you say, it's such a necessary thing, and I think until someone actually knows someone that died of the what's it actually called again? It's
so there's a lot of diseases. Mesothelioma, even lung cancer. There's some sort of kidney cancers. All that kind of thing. The thing is, none of them have got any cures. You're trying to save yourself a couple of $100 by doing your own asbestos removal.
That's my whole take on it. I mean, you're breathing in enough pollution and shit, let alone something that's just straight into your lungs to save yourself a couple of $100. Like it's just not worth it. And like you say, if we go onto those samples, that's such a good point that, there's labs all around the place, right? I don't even know. There's probably 5 to 10 on the Gold Coast, right? And typically what would a sample look like? What would someone have to do to take a sample safely to it?
Yeah, so most of the labs, if you go onto if you just Google asbestos samples, they'll give you some clear guidance on what to do, and that's basically get some PPE on. it all wet, and we would only take a piece maybe that big as your thumbnail.
Mm-hmm.
You're already committed to the demo, so you can either just use a really sharp chisel and sort of gouge a bit out of the wall.
Yep.
But if you've got the electricity turned off to the house, our favourite way is to just take a power point off or the switch, and there's usually a broken bit in there because they broke through the wall to put the wire in. So you really don't have to, you don't have to disturb it or break it. And 9 times out of 10, there's a piece in there.
Yeah.
This way, or you can call us and come do it for you.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So there's a few options there, and I think the biggest one, like Jason said, is if you're going to pull a power point off the wall, make sure the power's off in the house, like totally off, because you might just think that you're throwing the power circuit off, but the person that you bought the house off might have put that power point in and wired it on the lighting circuit. You just never know with houses. Like, you know, I've come across things like that. I'm guessing you've come across crazy things like that in the past.
Mate, anyone who stands there and tells you how houses were built properly in the old days has never done a reno. I've spent 15, 20 years pulling houses apart with my bare hands, and I can tell you that it was just as hit and miss back then as it is now. And then if you use some uneducated home renovators, like the electricity is just not something you're going to get a second chance with.
No, like you say.
Yes,
sorry, go ahead.
It's yes or no. It's either going to kill you or it isn't.
Yep.
That's pretty. You get a decent whack of electricity. You never play electricity ever.
No, it's. I was actually just talking to someone, you know, about it recently, and the main things that I worry about as a builder on site is I worry about electricity, I worry about asbestos, and I worry about like mold as well. You know, like we've just had a job with a heap of mold, and you know. I think one of the other builders that we're tendering against, because the client came back to us and asked and said, why is your mold removal so expensive? And I said, because we're bringing professionals in to do it. I'm not exposing my guys to breathing in black mold spores. You know what I mean? Like, I don't play that game. Like, I don't play the cost cutting game when it comes to people's safety.
Oh, and even just like, so, you know, there's a story about, you know, some people go, how long would you live without food? How long would you live without water? That's good, but how long are you going to live without air?
Yeah.
Makes like breathable air the most valuable commodity to the human race.
Yeah.
Why would you do anything to inhibit your ability to just breathe normally?
Yeah, true. True.
The problem with them is when you're doing asbestos removal, there's no red lights, there's no smoke, there's no warnings going off, but what's going to happen is when you're 70, you're going to find out you've got 2 weeks to live, and that it will steal your retirement, your future. And you know, we get a lot of older people that we do jobs for, and they go, I'm 70, so I've got to worry about. And I go, mate, do your grandchildren visit you? Because that's where you're going to pass it on. There's some horrible stories on the Workplace Health and Safety website about home renovators. There's a couple in Brisbane that brought a house, but they didn't know, so it wasn't their fault. And most people who fall victim to this kind of stuff didn't know. They had a new baby, they sanded their new home that they brought. They were going to sanded it before they painted it. They didn't know it was asbestos back then. And their son died when he was 20. That's their fault. You know, they sanded those walls. They didn't know, but like, how do you live with that guilt?
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to go there, I think.
No.
Yeah.
No. Not for, like you say, you know, if you can't afford an extra few $100 to get it done right, then maybe you shouldn't be doing your reno.
There's bigger problems.
Yeah. There's bigger problems.
Asbestos removal done correctly. And, you know, like, and that's only half of it, you know. Because asbestos is a treaty exclusion, even if you wrap it properly and you try and get it to the tip, if you have an accident on the way to the tip and they have to call me because 4 lanes of the M1 are blocked up and there's asbestos everywhere, that's 30 grand you're not insured for.
Yeah,
so, you know, like the tip to the tip becomes a big problem. And as homeowners, you're only allowed to do 250 kilos. But I mean, that adds up pretty quickly too. I mean, how many trips do you want to make in the family car with asbestos? You know, it starts to add up in your mind. This just really isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. hassle, you're not really saving any money, and you could actually be having a good time and some fun.
Yeah. I think a couple of things I want to touch on, which will be super helpful for the guys. The first one is if you can just sort of give us like a brief overview of, you know, the different types of asbestos and sort of where it is typically found. Like we have touched on that, but, you know, if you can just have a talk about that again.
All right. So we can start from the floor up and work through the house that way. So in your flooring, you can find compressed sheeting. That's like 19 mil thick, weighs a ton. If you pull off an older bathroom and there's new compressed, I guess we'll start with this. Every product that was made in the 40s and 50s that had asbestos in it has been remade with the asbestos taken out of it. Okay, so if you see some 19 mil compressed sheeting, don't think, oh, that didn't have asbestos in it, because it has. We've had it tested. So you can have a 90 mil compressed sheeting, which is mainly in bathroom floors. Then you can have vinyl asbestos tiles. I call them VATs. They look like tiles, but they're made out of vinyl. They have non-friable asbestos in them. And then probably the biggest hazard is the friable-backed asbestos vinyl. Look, there's plenty of pictures online, but the quick look is if you've got something with like a geometric pattern on it and sort of baby poo brown or a green or those kind of colours, I will just stop. You know, that's in our business. That's what we do. If we think there's a hazard, we stop and get it. And now we're moving from the floors up to the walls. Now all the walls can be they can be the friable or non-friable. So they have they call it LDB, low density board. That stuff is mixed plaster of Paris and about 90% asbestos fibres. That's particularly nasty. Whereas the standard fibro sheeting, that's probably about 9%, and that's mixed with cement. So they have a different feel and a different sound. And if you know what you're sort of looking for, you'll find it. Up the walls to the ceiling, same thing again. It can be a low density board, or it could be just a straight sheeting. Some of the other things to look out with ceilings, if you've got like a perforated ceiling, you might see like a lot of holes in it. Looks like soundproof and stuff like that. That can also be low density board. Then we're going to go out to the eaves, which is pretty much, if you have a house built before 1990 and it's got eaves on it, like some don't, that's probably where they'll still be. The bathrooms and the wet areas are yes and no. They may have been renovated, so they may have non-asbestos sheeting. It's worth every cent of the price of a test to find out how much money you can save. And then obviously the exterior cladding, there's a couple of different profiles that we use. But you know, there's shadow clad, there's just the normal street flat sheeting, and there's like a fluted sheeting as well. Plus fitting. And then the roof. So roofs can be the Super 6 roofs that everyone's aware of. There's also a smaller profile that was called standard, and it actually looks like corrugated iron from the road. Got shingles. And some waterproof membranes on some of the old flat buildings and stuff like that. Other places around the house could be in the putty in your old windows. They had asbestos in that. Bakelite fittings, Bakelite switches, all that stuff, asbestos in it. In your meter box, if it's got a black Zamolite panel behind the meters, that's got asbestos in it. Drum rounds, fences, there's about 3 types of asbestos fencing. Just that Super 6 that everyone's aware of, there's sort of woven.
Just so the guys know, that Super 6 is like, what is it? Like, it must be 150 mil between each piece.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It'll have 7 ribs. If you Google Super 66, you'll find it. I mean, we've got a full gallery on our website and stuff like that. And even on my Facebook page, we post a lot of stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I post is educational. So it's like, here we go. I mean, the vinyl back flooring post that we did went absolutely viral. A couple of people shared it. It got 22,000 likes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm going to put Jason's
website
down below. So you can visit it. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much anywhere you can think of, you could have friable or non-friable asbestos.
And just so everyone knows,
Yeah.
Friable versus non-friable.
Okay. The friable is non-friable. So they call the friable asbestos. It can be reduced to a powder with your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put a bit of LDB, it just looks like normal wall. You can actually just pretty much crush it down. The reason why the vinyl back flooring is called friable is because it's 90% asbestos. That's what makes the vinyl a little bit cushiony.
Mm-hmm.
And then non-friable is how we're going to matrix, of course, so it's board form. So all the 60 Super 6 roofing, the sheathing, all that kind of stuff. When you get it tested, the test will say whether it's friable or non-friable and whether it's got white, blue or brown asbestos in it. It doesn't matter white, blue or brown, it's all asbestos and there's no good asbestos.
Yeah, these are things that, I mean, okay, when I bought my last home,
yeah.
I actually didn't get an asbestos test done, but it was built in 92, so I was quite confident, and I did have one of my foremen come around, but I did get an electrician come out and do a full review. There were some cracks and stuff, so I got an engineer. But the point of what I'm getting at here is, before I bought a house, I just didn't rely on my $195 building inspection or whatever they cost you. You know, I spent $1,000 getting guys like Jason, but you know, an engineer and an electrician, because I was fishy about certain things in the house. If it was me and I was buying a 1960s cottage, or you know, anything prior to 85, paying Jason, I don't know, whatever his cost is to just come out and have a look at it. This is what I'm talking about, because if you're buying this thing to make a renovated, like a profit, you know, sell it and move on, you're like, that money that you spend to do those investigations is really going to determine whether that house is going to make any profit or not. You know, if you're going to get a house and it's totally full of friable asbestos, you'd probably want to potentially steer clear of it, unless
We've had it.
Yeah,
we've had 3 people that we've gone in and told them the vinyl's friable, because we've taken the sample. So these people, we have a little inside joke in the business. We only work for smart people. So these guys were smart enough to ring us, and they got a sample of the floor, sample of the wall, and the ceiling. So our price to come out was, I think it was like $250, and then it was another. So it cost me about $400 or $500 for all of that. We worked out there was about $180,000 worth of asbestos removal. So you're scrubbing over $500. Maybe you need to do, if this is a business, all businesses are based on numbers. So work out that $500 as a percentage of the purchase price of the home. And if you can't afford that percentage, you shouldn't be doing renos.
100%. You know,
it's that small.
Don't just rely on the $295 building and pest or whatever it is. Get like the proper guys out that specialize in each of these little areas.
And they're insured. You know, they're not insured, so they have to be really careful about what they say, because they don't have any professional indemnity. Anyone who does reports or inspections or produces IP must have professional indemnity insurance. And the reason why they don't have it is, one, it's because they can't get it because they're not asbestos removal professionals. And 2, it starts at about $8,000. You've got a handyman come around saying, yeah, I do asbestos as well. I really don't think he's going to spend the money to be insured.
Is that on? That's on the QBCC website for Queensland, isn't it? Whether you've got that asbestos ticket or not.
No, because the QBCC doesn't consider asbestos removal as building work. So we're licensed by the Department of Justice and Workplace Health and Safety. They're regular for us, and for our transport license, it's the Department of Environmental and Heritage. So we sort of we skipped over the QBCC, because that was one of the things when I had my roofing business. I rang them up and I said, we're going into asbestos full time now. What licenses do we need? And they just said, it's not a licensed class. Just we don't have an interest. So
I'm surprised they didn't want to have an interest just to charge you a fee each year.
But who's going to argue with Workplace Health and Safety and say, no, we want to make the money? they're the guys you want to be friends with. And, just on workplace health and safety, they are awesome, We work really closely with them. If we have, we've had some pretty curly jobs in the last couple of years, and if we're not sure, we just ask. We bring them up and say, hey, look, guys, we're looking at doing this. Where do we stand on this? Are we covered for it? How do we protect our guys, especially if there's other stuff involved other than asbestos?
Mm-hmm.
And for tradesmen, their attitude is we would rather help you than have to clean up the mess and prosecute you.
Yep.
They're excellent.
Yeah, that's good.
Really good approach. QBCC, not so much.
So it's the department, like that's the one in Queensland. Is it? Do you have a New South Wales license as well?
So with most trades, there's that cross-border thing with so the QBCC and I think it's Fair Work New South Wales. They have a cross-border agreement with building trades and same as asbestos.
Okay.
So at this stage, because of qualifications for asbestos removal are nationally based, even if we were to get a license in New South Wales, if we had to, and we do a lot of work in New South Wales, it hasn't been a barrier to us. The rules are a little bit different on clearances, but essentially it's the same. Our business is all about compliance. We have to know the rules. And the rules are easy to follow because the act's about that thick. And I've probably read it times than I should, but it's just easier to know the rules and play within the rules. And New South Wales, Queensland, it's really good. We did a big job at the airport last year and we actually removed asbestos in the Queensland end of the Gold Coast end and transported it to the New South Wales end. So it was across the road. It was about 23,000 cubic metres. So, and that was time to read the rule book again to see.
The reason I asked that is just for the majority of the members in the group are Queensland, New South Wales, or Victoria. So there'll be the state governing place where someone, I guess, can look up to see whether the person has a license. Is that right?
Yeah, I think if you go to, the workplace like the regulator in your state. So, New South Wales, they call it WorkSafe. I think Victoria, they call it Safe Work. Queensland Workplace Health and Safety. And you know what? They've got numbers there, and you can just ring them anyway. We have licenses in Queensland, so you have to have your personal license, like I've got one for me, but we also have to have a business license as well. If you're going to engage someone that doesn't have a business license, then they're not legit. All about compliance for us.
The reason that I have sort of harped on about this a little bit is just because so one of my staff recently went to a Master Builders event, and this is only Queensland I'm talking about, but if it happens in Queensland, it's going to happen in New South Wales, it's going to happen in Victoria. It doesn't matter where you are in Australia. In Queensland, for example, if you just want to do a basic, say you want to do a super quick bathroom reno, as long as it's not over, and don't quote me, you'll have to go and look, but as long as it's not over about $11,000, you can do it without having an owner builder license. Now, it's pretty easy for a bathroom to go over $11,000 once you add everything up, right? So if you do one for say $15,000, you don't apply for an owner builder's license, you can actually get fined for that. But the reason my mind was sort of ticking along with this the other day, because I don't think there's any case law yet, but just you wait, because I know it's going to happen, especially because QBCC are going after this at the moment. So like as a builder, I've got to warrant a product structurally and waterproof, and there's a few other things in Queensland, but it's sort of similar in most of the other states, for 6 years and 9 months. As an owner builder, you warrant it the same way. Now, as a builder, if I engage an asbestos removal person and, I don't engage them and check whether they've got the right license and that they've got the right insurances and all the qualifications, and then they go in and say half remove the asbestos, and then someone buys that place and then they find more asbestos and they're like, hey, this whole house has been renovated, but the asbestos wasn't done properly. They'll come back after me for that. And I hate to think, what would happen if that next person potentially got sick over that. Because I can tell you right now, my insurer will straight away look for a loophole to go, you didn't follow the procedures, so you're out. But the scary thing is this is not just for builders. This is for anyone. And I'm just waiting for the day that some case law comes up where someone buys a home that someone's just renovated without getting an owner builder license, and there's some structural issues or there's some waterproofing issues, and they go back and sue the previous owner to redo it because you have to warrant it just like a builder. But it's
up to interpretation.
You don't know.
Yeah, it's up to interpretation by the law. You know, if they get a smart lawyer who gets onto it and says that you. Look, I have it. Like I'm a Master Builders member. We've been members for about 9 years. I wouldn't be without it. Yeah. But there's always those things in those contracts. Have you discharged your duty of care? Have you created a safe workplace? You know, Master Builder. I mean, an owner builder contract is pretty hefty. Like you really, really want to be able to read those rules and understand what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. Just what you said before, there are actual fines for people who hold builders licenses or trade licenses. So that would include a home builder, I would guess. Or engaging asbestos, anyone who do asbestos removal that isn't properly licensed and qualified. Yep. You know, there's a lot of talk about the 10 square metre rule. I think it's a disaster. I'm sure people have read it and they're probably waiting to hear me talk about it. So in Queensland, it's being knocked on the head in the ACT, can't do it. But in most states of Australia, it says you can remove 10 square metres of asbestos as long as you put control measures in place. Yeah. Now, no one likes the second half of that sentence. Yep. You'll hear everybody say, oh, we can do 10 square metres, we can do 10 square metres. There's so much involved. To do an asbestos removal job properly, you're probably $2,000 out of pocket before you start.
Yeah.
But paper masks don't work. They don't work. They test the paper on a machine to make sure it doesn't let the size particles go through. But for a mask to work, you must have a seal to your face. So how the hell can you get a seal to your face, an airtight seal to your face with a paper mask? You know, these are the problems with the 10 square metre world and the sort of DIY thing. I know I got a bit off track there, but that's one of my big things. It's just you have to read the whole sentence. You have to read the whole clause. It's all about compliance. And many people got themselves in trouble with the old paper mask. Unless you're freshly shaven with a properly fitting mask, it isn't going to work. So if you've got a beard, put in a paper mask, you might as well put it on your head and wear it as a hat. There's not anything at all. But these are the things that if you're an owner builder and you go, yeah, it's all right, and you've got that license, this all comes as your responsibility now. So even if you're doing it yourself and the neighbours ring, it's a workplace. You're going to have to act for workplace health and safety in your state.
This is sort of why I kind of got started with Reno Mentor, because you know, there are other people out there that sort of teach how to renovate, you know, but I think that they brush too much over the crux of it. You know, they brush too much over the safety, the budget, the actual management, and they're more just about picking your paint swatches and, you know, designing your layout this way. Like at the end of the day, that's what we see, but it's the behind the scenes stuff. It's like the old Titanic, right? It's like the iceberg is all the stuff underwater that's 90% that no one thinks about. And it's that 90% that's going to sink your ship. Just because you haven't picked the right paint color, your sink's not going to ship. Your ship's not going to sink, right? And I like I say, I don't like to be negative about the whole thing, but I just want people to be aware that, hey, you're signing up and I really want you to go ahead for it, but just be smart, you know, just don't jump in there. And like you say, it's very easy for these, you know, when they talk about like renovating for profit, go in and paint everything, paint your house. But like you just said, someone painted, rubbed all the walls down, rubbed all the old paint off. Who knows? The paint was probably lead paint as well, right? Yeah. Rubbed all the paint off and then killed their kid 20 years later. So I just think that's, you know, I haven't done any of those courses, so maybe they do go into it, but that's why I'm just sort of more about being real with everyone and just going, hey guys, we're not playing in like, you know, we're not playing in an easy field to play in here, where there are risks, and there's a lot of builders out there that do it and do it well. And if you model what they do, then you're going to be fine. But if you try and cut corners and not learn about it, then you're going to be in trouble.
Oh, mate, it's great what you're doing. And I'm not going to name the show, but we did the asbestos removal on one of those home renovation shows, reality shows.
Yeah.
When they were here, and like we had to have like a 2-hour meeting with they had a third party safety guy. They had their own safety guy and the producers of the show, and they set us down and they said, "This is what's going to happen, mate. If you get this wrong, we're going to shut this site down, and it's going to cost you all this sort of stuff." And we had to prove to them that we were capable of doing the job.
Yeah.
And it took us about 6 hours and twice as long as what it should have, and we got a heap of guys in there. But even the producers of those shows were all over us because they understand how important it is. What I was let down personally, is why I'm not going to mention the show. They didn't even mention it. They didn't even say, look, this is old house, but before 1990, we had to get the asbestos guys in. They just kept plowing through. And I think probably, you know, a couple of seasons of the block and a couple of seasons of our house rules and changing rooms coming back on, you know, renovating's awesome. Everyone should be renovating if they want to.
Yep.
But those shows it's entertainment. Mm-hmm. They're not based on. There's facts in there, but it's entertainment, and just they're not giving you a green light to do whatever you want. You know, you have to listen to professionals that are prepared to give you some tough love, because you don't want to start on this journey and end up in a disaster. And it's not, if you get the wrong paint colour, it's not a disaster. But some of the rest it can be. Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's a shame that didn't get brought up, because one sort of, like, don't get me wrong, I like watching those shows. Like, you know, I get thinking and I go, oh man, my kitchen could look that nice or whatever. But I'd love to actually just see what one of their budgets looked like at the end. Like, you know, like you say, they skipped over the whole asbestos removal. You're saying it took you 6 hours with a heap of guys. Like, it was in the thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, and no one ever, you never got to see that. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, oh, we're saving money by like painting the house, and we can do all this to save money. But it's like, hey, you didn't even address the fact that there was asbestos in the house. There could have been structural issues. You probably had to replace all the wiring in the wall because no one did any reviews. You know.
I'll tell you what they did. They went straight in. They tore out everything. They stripped all the gyprock out. They jackhammered up all the floors. That we put all the asbestos out for. Then they had to rewire it because the wiring wasn't up to code. Like all these things can just ruin your dreams, basically.
Yes.
Your dreams.
Yep.
And they do all that because they want exactly what you want, and that's a great finish and an awesome house.
Yep.
It's a shame they don't sort of go into it further.
Mate, I think what we've just talked about today is just going to be so valuable to everyone, and I'm so thankful for you for coming on. I don't have any more questions that I specifically want to ask you, but is there anything else that you think everyone should sort of know about?
I think just that, just renovating in general, like if you're not sure, just stop. Like that's our message. Like, just stop. If you think that you might be going to damage something, break something, a wall's going to fall down, just stop. Like, it's easy enough to find somebody. You know, believe it or not, there's tradies in just about every street in Australia.
Yeah.
It's no need to just like punch on and hope for the best. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and you know, I guess you know, renovating is we've renovated 4 houses ourselves. And we loved it. You know, it's a great experience to get the sledgehammer out and carefully dismantle a wall. And it should be. So, like, set yourself up for a win, not a failure.
Yep. Awesome. I really like that. I think to finish it off, the tip, the biggest thing that we can take here is, like you say, if you're unsure, stop. But even one step before that, how about you just get it so that hopefully you don't have to be unsure? Like, engage someone like Jason at the start of the job, engage an electrician that you trust to have a look at your wiring, you know, engage a pest inspector, but whatever you have to do, and figure out that, hey, I've got $100,000 to spend on this house, but shit, before I even begin, I've got to spend 20,000 on like taking asbestos out or fixing up the wiring or doing this or doing that. Nothing cosmetic, all stuff that you probably wouldn't have thought of. And you can get those things done for, you know, under $1,000, and you can be fully aware of potentially what you're in for.
Yeah, or walk away.
Or walk away.
Like we even found a house once that they had, it was asbestos clad on the outside, a 2-story house, and they just bricked over the whole exterior of the house. The only way I found it was when I walked through the garage door, I looked up and I could see the asbestos skin and then the brick skin. You know, just so you're never going to pick that up without you're just not going to be able to pick that up, because when I go to a house, all I'm looking for is that's it. I know where all the places where it's, you know, other inspectors are probably trying to do the whole house, where I know where all the little nasty little places that we've found it over the years, and we go straight to them. We will find it in, you know, a quarter of the time than anybody else will.
Yeah, awesome. All right, mate. No, this has been absolutely epic, and I'm so thankful for you for coming on. So, Jason, coastal asbestos removal, isn't it? Yep. Coastal asbestos removal. He's on the Gold Coast in Bundall. If you need any asbestos removal, if you need any, you know, reviews done before you buy a house or just before you're starting a renovation, he can help you out with it. His website is going to be in the link to this video, and it's also going to be underneath us here. And I might link them straight to your blog page, Jason.
Did you see our blog? So we've done a blog on every service we provide. So we've got like what to expect on the day: bathroom, fence, roof, exterior cladding, interior cladding. There's heaps of stuff in there. We're a bit of a serial blogger, but we do it all for education, because we don't, like, we got into this to keep people safe. And if it means I just punch out a blog every now and again, that's no skin off my back.
Awesome, mate. Okay, fantastic. We'll finish up there, but mate, it's been a pleasure, and we'll no doubt speak soon.
No worries. Thanks, Danny. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, mate.